know if it's a double murder-suicide or it's something more insidious. Maybe it's a triple murder.
Who else was there?
The speculation was like, well, it had to be murder.
Someone at the door, or he said, just a minute, and then went to the door and I heard a scuffle or something. Yeah, I heard something like that.
3 bodies, 2 Bibles, and one massive sports entertainment empire with everything to lose. This is the story they don't want you to question. Let me take you back to June 2007. The sports entertainment world was stunned by news coming out of a rural property in Georgia. A respected Canadian technical wrestler, one of the industry's most celebrated performers, was found alongside his wife and young son during a routine wellness check. The official timeline painted by investigators was straightforward. The family was last seen alive at their home on Friday. When the performer missed scheduled appearances over the weekend, colleagues became concerned. Text messages from both the wrestlers and his wife's phones containing their home address and instructions about the dogs raised alarm bells. By Monday afternoon, authorities conducted a wellness check at the property. What they discovered would shake the foundation of the sports entertainment industry. The wrestler, his wife, a former industry personality herself, and their 7-year-old son were all found deceased in different areas of the home. Media outlets pounced on the story immediately. Headlines flashed across screens nationwide before investigators had even processed the scene completely. The immediate public reaction was a mixture of shock, disbelief, and morbid fascination. A high-profile celebrity case that seemed tailor-made for endless speculation. But as the initial media frenzy subsided, serious questions about the investigation began to emerge. What appeared to be an open and shut case would soon reveal troubling inconsistencies that continue to raise eyebrows to this day. Let's start with how authorities handled the scene. Instead of following standard protocol, officers asked a neighbor to enter the home first to secure the dogs. This immediately compromised the integrity of the crime scene. Any investigator worth their salt will tell you this is Investigation 101. Preserve the scene at all costs. The documentation is where things get even messier. Reports contained glaring inconsistencies. In one document, the wrestler was described as being found upright, while another stated he was hanging. That's not a minor detail, that's a fundamental difference in how a body was positioned. Evidence handling raises even more red flags. Reports mention dried blood on the wrestler's nose and fingers, but it's unclear whether forensic samples were taken before the body was moved. Critics argue this could represent a lapse in investigative protocol. Room temperatures were recorded as 82 degrees Fahrenheit in the wife's room and 72 degrees Fahrenheit in the child's, conditions that can affect decomposition. It's unclear how these variations were considered in determining the timeline of death. Perhaps most troubling was what wasn't tested. Empty alcohol containers found in the trash weren't checked for DNA. Some reports suggest a knife was discovered under the child's bed, though its significance and the timing of its discovery remain unclear due to conflicting sources. When experts review this case, they unanimously point to these procedural failures as reasons to question the official narrative. In a case of this magnitude, these aren't just oversights, they're inexcusable breaches of investigative standards. Friday morning, the wrestler dropped his son at a riding camp. A neighbor gave conflicting accounts about his driving, first claiming he drove erratically, later changing her story. That same evening, the family hosted a cookout, confirmed by grocery receipts found at the scene. According to a close colleague, he spoke with the wrestler for about 45 minutes on Friday night, before the call abruptly ended after the wrestler said someone was at the door. The colleague later recalled hearing what sounded like a scuffle, though this detail does not appear in the official reports. By Saturday afternoon, the wrestler told friends that the family had food poisoning from the previous night's cookout. Computer records show a search for Elijah was made around 4 p.m., possibly referring to the biblical prophet or to a fellow performer. The significance remains debated. Throughout Saturday, the wrestler spoke with both his neighbor and colleagues, claiming his family was ill and he had overslept and missed his flight. Those who spoke with him noted he sounded groggy and off. Early Sunday morning, a text from the wife's phone to the wrestler was sent around 4:50 a.m. Later that morning, identical text messages were sent from both the wrestler's and wife's phones to colleagues, providing their home address and stating the dogs would be in the enclosed pool area. Most bizarrely, 14 hours before the public announcement, someone updated the wife's Wikipedia page indicating her death. When traced, The IP address led to someone living just 1 minute from the sports entertainment company's headquarters. In a separate incident, users in a chat room discussed the wife's death the night before the public announcement. These timeline anomalies create a puzzle where crucial pieces don't fit the official narrative, leaving us to wonder what really happened during those final hours. The wrestler's autopsy revealed a critical finding that changes everything: chronic traumatic encephalopathy, or CTE. This degenerative brain condition develops from repeated head trauma, exactly what performers in the ring experience throughout their careers. In the months before the tragedy, those close to the family reported alarming behavioral changes. The wife's text messages described her husband becoming passive-aggressive and abusive, classic signs of CTE's progression. His sister-in-law noted extreme paranoia, with the wrestler taking different routes to familiar locations out of fear of being followed. CTE manifests in aggression, confusion, paranoia, and impaired judgment, a perfect storm of symptoms that could explain uncharacteristic violence. The condition wasn't widely understood in 2007, especially in sports entertainment, where acknowledging brain injuries threatened the industry's image. This medical context provides a potential explanation for what happened that weekend, not as an excuse, but as a factor that was critically overlooked during the investigation. Could proper monitoring and treatment of brain injuries have prevented this tragedy? It's a question that should haunt the sports entertainment industry to this day. Beyond the official narrative and the CT angle lies a web of alternative theories that refuse to disappear even years later. One fringe theory points toward a figure from the wife's past, noting the timing of the tragedy. While this theory persists online, no evidence has ever linked this individual to the events. The religious symbolism at the scene, with Bibles placed with the bodies, fuels this theory further. Another compelling point: if the colleague's account is true about hearing a scuffle after someone knocked on the door, could an outside party have entered the home? The lack of forced entry suggests whoever entered was known to the family. The premature Wikipedia update and early chat room discussions raise questions about how details of the tragedy emerged before the public announcement. Some speculate whether this points to insider knowledge, though no definitive link has been proven. From a corporate perspective, widespread concern over brain injuries posed significant liability for the company. Their swift decision to remove the wrestler from promotional materials was officially framed as a gesture of respect, but critics saw it as damage control. But skeptics see it as damage control. While many of these theories lack conclusive evidence, they persist because of the investigation's glaring deficiencies. When authorities fail to follow proper protocols, speculation inevitably fills the void left by unanswered questions. The physical evidence tells a story the official narrative ignores. The binding materials used on the wife, a coaxial cord and black tape, were never properly traced for purchase history. The bloody sock with hair found in the kitchen trash contained the wife's DNA, but not the wrestler's, an unexplained discrepancy. Room temperature variations critically impacted decomposition rates, potentially throwing off the entire timeline by days. Legal experts reviewing the case point to numerous procedural failures that would never stand in a properly conducted investigation. Chain of custody issues with the evidence, particularly the knife allegedly found under the child's bed, raise serious concerns about contamination. The neighbor being allowed to enter first violated basic scene preservation protocols. Former prosecutors note that in high-profile cases, there's often pressure to wrap things up quickly, particularly when a major corporation's reputation hangs in the balance. The standard for reopening such a case would require new physical evidence, which becomes increasingly unlikely as years pass without proper preservation of the original materials. The truth behind what happened in that Georgia home may never be fully known. Was it the devastating result of untreated brain trauma in a performer pushed to physical limits? Was there outside involvement that investigators overlooked? Or does the answer lie somewhere between these scenarios? What's certain is that 3 lives were lost, and the investigation failed them on multiple levels. The sports entertainment industry continues to face questions about performer health and safety, particularly regarding head injuries. While protocols have improved, this case stands as a stark reminder of what happens when warning signs are ignored. Some mysteries resist neat conclusions, but by examining them critically, we can at least ensure that similar tragedies might be prevented in the future. The questions this case raises about celebrity investigations, brain trauma in athletes, and corporate influence remain as relevant today as they were in 2007. If you're as haunted by this case as I am, smash that subscribe button and join me next week when we uncover another mystery the powers that be don't want questioned.